Colorado and Wyoming are two extremely similar-looking states. They're right next to each other. They pretty much have the exact same generic rectangular shape, and they're pretty similar in size too, with Colorado being only the slightly larger of the two. Both of these states are also mountainous states with the same Rocky Mountain chain running through each of them, so they have very similar geographies. Both of them are totally landlocked, deep within the North American interior, and so both states have very similar climates that are generally dry and windy with cold and snowy winters. And both states have pretty similar levels of water resources capable of supporting agriculture and civilization. The Rocky Mountains in general act as the high water tower of North America, as many of the continent's greatest rivers originate from the vast snowmelt taking place high up within them. As such, Colorado contains the headwaters for the Rio Grande, Arkansas, Colorado, and South Platte rivers, while Wyoming contains many of the headwaters for the Missouri, Lake Columbia, and North Platte rivers. But since the Colorado and Rio Grande rivers run further downstream to even more arid communities like Arizona, Nevada, Southern California, New Mexico, and Texas, those more arid downstream states rely on the water those rivers provide even more than Colorado. And so they are legally entitled by the U.S. federal government to withdraw more water from them, meaning that Colorado must allow most of their waters to continue on downstream. Wyoming is similarly legally required to also allow most of their rivers' water to continue downstream. But since their rivers don't flow further down to even more arid communities like many of Colorado's rivers do, they're generally allowed to keep more of their waters for themselves. And so Wyoming actually is legally entitled to even more freshwater resources than Colorado is. But despite all of these apparent similarities and maybe even advantages, Colorado and Wyoming differ in one extremely obvious way. Their populations are wildly different from each other in scale. As of 2023, Wyoming still only has a relatively tiny population of just a hair more than 580,000 people, while Colorado's population is more than 10 times greater than that, at well over 5.8 million people. That means that since Colorado is slightly larger in size, Colorado is on average about 9 times as densely populated as next-door Wyoming is. In fact, Wyoming's average population density of just 2.3 people per square kilometer ranks it as one of the most completely empty locations anywhere on the planet. For comparison, Wyoming is on average even emptier than Australia or Namibia, two infamously empty countries that are mostly covered in uninhabitable deserts. The only location in Europe that comes anywhere close to matching Wyoming's emptiness are the far northern reaches of the Scandinavian peninsula in the region of Lapland in Finland, where the population density is around 1.8 people per square kilometer. But that's Lapland within the Arctic Circle, where the winters are brutally harsh and last for 7 months of the year. A low population density there is to be expected, but it's comparable to Wyoming, where the climate is substantially more mild and tolerable. It gets even more interesting, though, because Wyoming really is a pretty major population anomaly within the United States. You see, Wyoming is the 10th largest state in the country by area, but it's also by far the absolute smallest in terms of population. Every other state in the country has a significantly higher population than Wyoming, including the really small ones like Vermont, Rhode Island, and Delaware. Put another way, there are a total of 119 counties in the United States that have a larger population than Wyoming does, including Little Tulsa County in Oklahoma. And we can still go even smaller. There are 29 cities in the United States that have a larger population than Wyoming, the smallest of which is just Memphis, Tennessee. All the mayors of these 29 cities govern over more people than the actual governor of the state of Wyoming, a state that has so few people in it that it doesn't even really have any cities of its own. The only urban areas in Wyoming are more like towns than cities, since there's only 4 in the entire state that even have a population of more than just 30,000 people. Most other extremely sparsely populated places in the world still have at least one proper major city. Alaska has encouraged Namibia as Windhoek, while Mongolia has Ulaanbaatar. But the largest town that Wyoming has to offer up is just Cheyenne, which only has a population of 63,000 people, about the same as the 143rd largest city in California, Santa Cruz. And Cheyenne is barely even in Wyoming either. It's in the far southeastern corner of state, and it's less than 10 miles away from the border with Colorado.